the only time in the United States American soil history that has been documented where a coup d'etat or a government overthrow was successfully carried out. In Wilmington, there was a governmental party called the Fusionist Party. They had took over every seat here in Wilmington. They had beat out the Republicans and beat out the Democrats. And this Fusion Party was like the example of what they wanted America to look like.
Cedric Harrison, an entrepreneur and storyteller and the founder of Wilmington Heritage Tours, a 90-minute immersive time machine experience in Wilmington, North Carolina. Through audiovisual storytelling and on site history, they uncovered untold stories like the 1898 coup, the only successful government overthrow in U.S. history. What started as a passion has grown into a nationally recognized cultural tourism experience featured in outlets like Travel and Leisure, The Washington Post, and PBS. Cedric has also helped lead economic initiatives like the Northside Food Co-op to address longstanding food insecurity. A TEDx speaker and Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation All for NC Fellow, he brings both lived experience and leadership to his work. After surviving a 2022 mass shooting as an innocent bystander, Cedric deepened his commitment to purpose-driven impact. His mission is simple: reconnect people to history, restore overlooked narratives, and use storytelling as a tool for education, healing, and economic impact. Welcome to the show, Cedric.
Thank you for having me. Honored to be
Thank
here.
Thank you. Thank you for being a guest. And, I'm really excited to have you on because I recently relocated to North Carolina. So I really want to have more local folks on as well. So why don't you tell folks about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a Wilmington native from the coastal part of the Carolinas. A lot of people know this area specifically as Wilmington, but we're surrounded by a bunch of other bodies of water: Cape Fear River, Riceville Beach area, Carolina Beach, Cure Beach, and yeah, I was born and raised in Wilmington and didn't know anything about a historical event that took place in Wilmington that was so impactful that it uh, had effects that rippled across the whole entire country. And because this story was hidden so well for so long, um, that by the time I came encounter with it, there still wasn't a lot of spaces or any spaces at all within the local area of the city that I was born and raised in that taught people about it, or that people could access to learn about it on a 24/7, 365 full time, anytime basis to access. And because of that, I use that as fuel to uh, create a historical experience through tours, through presentations. So I don't want to just put us under the umbrella of just a solo experience because we've expanded to creating so many different ways to engage with this history now. And that vehicle that I've been able to utilize through that is called Wilmington Color. And people reach out to us from literally all over the world to let us know they're coming to Wilmington and want to learn from us. And it has become a thing that has started to take the city by storm and connect the city to so many other different stories across the nation and the world. And yeah, there's a whole beautiful story within itself on how I got to that space. But that's kind of the short elevator pitch of it.
Wow. So what inspired you to turn history into an experience instead of just something that people read about?
Uh, I'm not a history guy. Like I didn't like. I wasn't leaving high school saying like I'm gonna go to college to be like a historian. And I mean, even when I got to college, honestly, I'm like my collegiate degree isn't in history. Um, I guess I was in that demographic of people that don't that didn't look at history as something that was appealing or something that connected to them.
Mhm.
And honestly, I believe it's because of the way that systems, have taught history in the past, and usually there's people, majority that look like myself, that are usually left out of those historical narratives, especially in a positive way. And so I really took my history class very seriously once my history professor broke this barrier and connected this dot with me that Wilmington was a place that was majority Black and had this very rich heritage and had a very, very, very tragic event that, like, it wasn't just a, oh, this happened everywhere type of thing, like a lot of the projected violence that we have seen on Black and brown bodies through America throughout its time, but that there was uh, a very extra measure took with that never was even talked about, and even more so, nothing was ever actually done. And it's actually something that has all of the legs to be addressed. And yeah, so that interest just would not leave my brain. Like, I couldn't go to sleep without thinking about it. I couldn't wake up without it being on my mind. And I started to look into my family's history first and started wanting to identify where my family came from. And then, yeah, started to learn more about Wilmington's heritage in a deeper form. And that's kind of how the seed was planted for me to create the tour.
That's amazing. So, from like a high level perspective, I know we've kind of alluded to an event that happened in Wilmington. Can you describe it a little bit without giving too much away?
Yeah, I mean, and people can definitely go and do a deep dive into research, because there's a lot of platforms now that are starting to talk about it online. But in Wilmington, it was the time, the only time in the United States American soil history that has been documented where a coup d'état, or a government overthrow, was successfully carried out. In Wilmington, there was a governmental party called the Fusionist Party. They had took over every seat here in Wilmington. They had beat out the Republicans and beat out the Democrats. And this Fusion Party was like the example of what they wanted America to look like during Reconstruction and after the Civil War was over, as it was a government that was made up of progressive whites and white allies and white farmers and free Blacks. And these individuals started to build out a political demonstration that could be replicated throughout the state and throughout the nation, of how Blacks and whites can come to the table together and make decisions that could push everybody forward. And in Wilmington was actually starting to thrive at a very high level. And then there were some folks that was not happy about this unity, and literally went to every measure that they could to dismantle it. And the highest level of dismantling that was a coup d'etat and government overthrow, where people rallied up from all over the nation and came to Wilmington and scared people from voting for these Fusionist Party members. But more so, ended up literally holding guns to these political seat holders' heads, and made them sign over their actual seats to the men that held the guns to their heads. And the men put the guns down and picked the pens up and wrote their names in those positions. And they also created the White Declaration of Independence. And they also created the Jim Crow political movement that we know it throughout the South. And then that's when you get your trend of massacres that start to happen from Atlanta in 1906 all the way up until your Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so as massacres started to take place, they didn't have to actually overthrow the government from that standpoint, as they learned how to take over a city without doing that level of damage. And it was because of the example and what they were able to learn as they took over Wilmington. And so right after they did that, these men that took over Wilmington became your next United States Supreme Court judges, your next United States Congress members, your next secretaries of the Navy, lieutenant governors, and mayors. And believe it or not, some of the rules and regulations that they made while they were in position are still in play. And yeah, until we started Wilmington Color Heritage Tour, you would come to Wilmington and nobody would tell you about
Wow. Man, that was a lot of knowledge you just dropped in
it.
in a short period of time.
Yeah.
I have never heard that before.
Mhm. And so a lot of people come and see us now because PBS finally made a documentary about it.
I can't wait to come. Okay, this is
Yeah, and there's a book that won a Pulitzer Prize in 2019 that now has been bringing a lot of people to us too as well. But what really first brought it to my attention was my history professor, and then right after that was a documentary called Wilmington on Fire that was made by a black filmmaker by the name of Christopher Everett, and that's when I learned about Wilmington, and couldn't stop thinking about it.
yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, I'm fascinated. I actually do enjoy history. I was that nerd. So I
Yeah.
love documentaries. I'll sit there and watch one all day.
Hmm.
Um, Absolutely fascinating. I did not know that. So,
Hmm.
I know you mentioned that your tours are kind of like a time machine, right? So what does that experience feel like for someone stepping into it for the first time?
Yeah, so for the most part, when you take tours, they're usually walking, or they're usually you might can get shouldered around or what have you. But for the most part, you're just being taught that. They're the tour guide, and they probably are great tour guides. A lot of tour guides are can be entertainers or may have came from a public speaking background, theater, et cetera, et
Sure.
cetera. And so they're not so I want to champion us by make sure I don't throw it. But our experience isn't just a narrative guided lecture style type of tour.
Mhm.
We have television screens on our vehicles, and we play videos that also interact with you as we're going around through the area to tell you these stories. And then we also bring books that existed during these certain times that you can also put your hands onto as well. So we make the tour multi-dimensional. It's not just something that you're hearing, it's something that you're seeing, it's something that you're feeling and that you're touching. And by the time you get off the bus, it felt like, oh, back into reality now, because but from the stories that we're narrating to the television stories that are being told to the things that's in your hand, it almost can literally take you back to that moment in time.
Wow, that sounds super interesting. And how long are these tours approximately?
Yeah, so our general tour is 90 minutes long. We have two beach experiences, and they're both around 60 minutes.
Wow, that sounds amazing. It really does. So
Thank
I can already kind of see the answer to what I'm getting ready to ask you, but why
you.
is it so important to tell the full story of Wilmington's history, especially events like the 1898 coup?
Yeah, so the 1898 coup is the main story that people want to hear, just because
Sure.
it's such a shock factor. Like,
Oh
what,
yeah.
and like, well, tell me how, and so that is the story. That's the story that people come and visit from us all over the world. Like, before they get here, it's like, this is the story.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I, I didn't want to just build a tour around trauma.
Sure.
I didn't
Yeah.
just want to take people on a circle of traumatic experiences.
Sure.
And so the 1898 story is a very, very, very important story, because a lot of people sometimes feel like the inequality in America conversation is sometimes something that people just kind of pull from out of thin air.
Hmm.
um, and
No, there's
there usually seems to be a gap within American history
Mhm.
when they talk about the Civil War and then the Civil Rights Movement. There
Yeah.
seems to be a little gap. It's like there was enslavement, there was racism, and then there was the Civil War. Then it wasn't racism anymore, but then it was, and the segregation. But then Martin Luther King stopped it,
Yeah.
and then we try to yeah then we got a black president, and it was like, man, that's actually not accurate. Like, that's actually not that.
I'm
Let's
laughing
back up
because
some.
you're
Let's
right.
back up.
You're
Yeah,
right. You're
it,
right. You're right. Let's fast forward. Racism has been solved.
yeah, yeah, and so we tell the story about 1898 to break down the levels of how people could have missed certain parts of history in the past, but then also we like to showcase all of the excellence and the what I like to call glory stories, the the things that people were able to do, against, like that showcase resilience, and that people can see that look like those people that are making these accomplishments and can say, I can do that too.
Yeah.
I can be inspired to do that too. And so we felt like 1898 is a story that draws the people,
Yeah.
but the other stories of the what I like to call the stories of 1897, of right before is the stories that actually make people really like stay with Wilmington and the story, and how, oh, we can really learn from this small town and see the reflections on how this has projected over an entire country to, some global, could be debated too as well. So
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So that's what we link our stories around. But then we also tell you about Green Book locations and AME churches, and a lot of the things that happen in Wilmington, because Wilmington is, like I told you, we're surrounded by the water. It was one of the first cities to be, incorporated during colonization, and so Wilmington has a lot of rich heritage because a lot of the blacks that did things within our area or went on to do things in other areas were some of the first blacks to do things within this colonial period and area of Reconstruction, or doing or colonizing of America.
Absolutely amazing. I'm learning so much. I knew I was going to thoroughly enjoy this interview. To history nerds. So,
Thank you.
how does understanding our history actually change the way that people see themselves today?
You see it, you can beat it.
Like that.
Not to go all the way to another place, but I like to tell people I'm a product of public housing. Like, I grew up low income housing, and the friends that I grew up with, and just the environment that I was brought up in, um, people really only could inspire to what they saw on their street corners, and right there within their 4 block radius. And it wasn't a lot of motivation or inspiration to do that many things that could actually, contribute to the better of your society and your community and environment. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to create the tour. Before I even got into history, I was doing community work and doing um, violence prevention and mediation work, and trying to help resolve conflicts within the community. And I realized that a lot of guys wanted to look up to uh the tough guy that,
Sure.
puts poison in his community, or projects violence onto his community through ultimately being a victim of trauma themselves, and just not being able to properly deal with that and heal from that
Mhm,
in a
mhm.
way. And once I got my eyes open to Wilmington and its community, and I looked back at what we were doing then, I was like, well, if I would have knew that Wilmington was home to the first collegiately trained African American architect that built buildings for Booker T. Washington, I
Wow.
might have would have thought a little bit differently about,
Yeah.
where I wanted to go in my career path. If I
Yeah.
would have known that I grew up right around the corner from the first street in North Carolina to have a black doctor on it, a black medical degree doctor on it, maybe I would have stuck it out in school another 4 years or so to, to be a doctor, and aim for something that our community still needs to this day, because of this
Yeah.
tragic event. A lot of those people left, and Wilmington doesn't have that many black lawyers or doctors, or the black people in top exec positions or in meaningful career path places, are kind of by themselves when it comes to uh, other people that look like them in that
Mm.
workspace. And that is a huge connection to 1898, and a huge reason for why the city of Wilmington currently right now is still disconnected from the highest potential of greatness that it can tap into. And so, yeah, we like to touch on all the when people come and see these stories and see this reflected, especially when I get young students, we always like to ask, like, I'm like, where's my future doctors at? You know what I mean? And then, you know, there is some believers already before we tell tell that story. But then after we tell that story, you know, I do believe that we get a few more people that can believe in themselves to do that same thing too as well.
I love that. And actually, that's a perfect segue to my next question. What makes it really is. You set me up so well. What makes storytelling such a powerful tool for healing, education, and transformation?
Storytelling does everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only how we tell the stories of the different people that we're talking about, but just telling the stories about what we do,
Oh, yeah.
to making sure you tell the story right, just as far as when you're talking about marketing your story to for people to come and learn from it.
Yeah.
Storytelling is so powerful, especially when the people that can value from the most actually own the story and can tell the story. I think that becomes a huge disconnect too as well within history.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's some um,
Embellishment or like,
whatever. I'm not, I gotta stop trying to be like some.
just
Some
say it.
people
It's
feel
fine.
like,
Just say
yeah,
it. Just say
the
it. We're safe space, buddies. Just say it.
yeah, the there's a slight privilege to be able to dive into history in a deep way.
Yeah.
Uh, to take the time away from your reality is a privilege. Um,
Ooh.
as there are some people that are
Yeah.
so in the weeds and so behind in the current day-to-day reality that they don't get the opportunity to even know that there's stories in the past that they need to spend some time with that can
I see
help
that.
them in today's time. And so I think that is very important to be telling these stories and telling them in a way that is more accessible and easy for people that can't come across this information all of the time to digest.
Mm.
Um, I, I believe that's the space that has been able to help us kind of push us forward a little bit faster than some people might have imagined for us to be able to do so.
I see what you're saying. I like that statement you said, um, in terms of folks may not have that opportunity to really digest that information. Yeah, I could definitely see where your organization fills that gap. I could see that. You're absolutely right on that. They may not have the books, they may not have the resources, the teachers or whatever to share this knowledge with them. So I think that's amazing what you guys are doing. Um, and yeah, I just think that's amazing. So anyway. And now a word from our sponsor. When clarity turns into action, execution matters. Starring You is a consulting firm for individuals and organizations ready to implement with clarity and intention. Through one-on-one consulting and strategic support, we help individuals and organizations refine their message, build brands, create content, and launch podcasts, books, and offers with structure and confidence. Starring You is not about rushing the process or copying trends. We focus on individualized strategy, clear direction, and intentional execution. To learn more or to book a strategy session, head on over to starringyou.com. And that's STARENGU.com. Head on over to starringyou.com. Back to the show. What's one thing people think they know about Black history, but completely misunderstand until they experience your tour?
Some people feel like I said, like it's just like the Black experience in America has just been all bad, 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 trauma, 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 trauma. People feel like coming to take our tour is also going to just be like going to watch another enslavement movie. And
Yeah. Okay.
like coming to take our, like, this is Rosewood on wheels, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's actually far from it. That's where
I
it's
love it.
actually like, no, we're actually telling you about the first black architect in the nation. We're talking about the first black doctor of North Carolina. We're showing you green book locations. Wilmington actually had the second most green book locations out of all states in North Carolina. The only other state that had more listings in the green book was Charlotte, and it
Oh
was only
wow.
about three, right? And so, like, we actually, like, yeah. So that's one of the things that I feel like is a huge disconnect, is that it's actually some great stories that you would be inspired by instead of more so feeling sad about.
Yeah.
And also with these stories that I feel like people don't get to as well, is that a lot of this history isn't that long ago.
Mm,
I think
true.
some people feel like it's just so ancient and so far separated from where we are today. But when people come and take our tour and then they get off that bus,
Mm-hmm.
man, feels like right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
I can
that's
see that.
that's one of our that's one of our biggest things right there. Yeah, like by the time people get off the bus, they're trying to figure out, well, why isn't this not in the state curriculum? And what, do y'all not get schools all over to come in, like, and so yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I could see that. And so, how has Wilmington Color impacted the local community, not just culturally, but economically and generationally?
Yeah, so this is what we really love to talk about, because the history is kind of a trick. Like, the
Hmm.
history is kind of like the cheese in the mousetrap to get people here, right? Like, come and
Yeah.
learn this controversial story, right? But now that we have you on the bus, as we're telling you about the history, guess what we're also doing? Telling you that there's a local black-owned business over here, and this is what this local business does. There's another black-owned business over here. This is what they do. There's another business over here. This is what they do. As a matter of fact, if y'all are going to lunch after this 10 o'clock tour, this is a place that we highly recommend and suggest for you to go and eat at, right? And when our tour starts, and this is also an economic driver, it's an economic stream and revenue for us, but it's also another way to push economics outside the bus too as well. Before any of our tours or our presentations start, we do accept sponsors and advertising, but it's kind of just a one time annual thing where before any tour or any presentation starts, we say this tour is being brought to you by business business organization, and we've had people take our tour that was looking to move to the area. That's another reason. That's another component of tool for why we're using the tour tool as well, to try to bring black people back, so that we can get back to that 60%. But there's a realtor guy that advertises with us, and he said, "I got another group from off your tour," and that's economic driving, economic development. We're bringing tour buses. We're bringing charter buses of people. Like, we have two vehicles. Our vehicles could fit about 30 people. But we're getting groups that are way bigger than our vehicles, and they're bringing a charter bus, and they want the tour right there within that 1 hour, and it's 150 of them. And rather 150 of them, and so now we're bringing this 150 people that's coming to Wilmington specifically for our tour,
It's
But now
amazing.
they're also staying at hotels in Wilmington. They're also eating at restaurants in Wilmington. They're also going to shop in Wilmington, get gas, stop at the stores, toiletries, items, and we're not just economic driver for black businesses, but we're an economic driver for Wilmington, because we're getting schools, we're getting churches, we're getting Jack and Jill programs, we're getting book clubs and fraternities and sororities, chapters and lines coming to celebrate anniversaries. And it's not just one or two people coming down to Wilmington to see the Wilmington Color Tour. It's literally tens to fifties to hundreds of people coming down. And not only are they taking the tour, but they're coming to stay and patronize wherever other spaces and places that they occupy while they're here. But the main attraction, or the thing that made them say, let's take a day to come to Wilmington, is to learn from us.
That's amazing. I congratulations
Mm.
for success and everything that you guys are doing. And I'm kind of curious, at what point did this shift from maybe a passion project into a full business and movement?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So honestly, the passion project started really before we even gave it a name. I first got into community work. I told you I was doing violence prevention and stuff like that. I started a nonprofit called Support the Port Foundation, 501(c)(3) nonprofit that I created while I was in Atlanta. As I started to just see um, black entrepreneurship, but then also black philanthropy, and seeing people just give back and really give to the community. And I was giving back to as well in Atlanta, but I'm from Wilmington, and it's actually not that well back there from where I'm from. And as a matter of fact, historically, this is what's going on, right? And so
Mhm.
I first got back to Wilmington doing community work, and in the midst of that, when I came, Wilmington on Fire was when Wilmington on Fire came out, and the first seed that planted that I couldn't get like when I was like I can't go to sleep or wake up without thinking about it. The first thing that I did to kind of unpack this energy and get creative was create an activity book series around Wilmington's black community, and that coloring book ended up selling thousands of copies. And uh, there was a hurricane that happened right around that time, one of the worst hurricanes to ever hit the East Coast, especially North Carolina. It's called Hurricane Florence. And my
Oh,
nonprofit helped the community recover during that time. And before that, I was just kind of like local joker stuff, giving out turkeys, giving out toys during Christmas, turkeys during Thanksgiving. There's a we used to give out queen size beds to domestic violence survivors going to a new home after getting out of a domestic relationship and stuff like that. And just great meaningful things, but just kind of
yeah.
filling the space, but not really trying to drive any economics or trying to do any of those things.
Yeah.
And we helped the city recover from the hurricane so much so that the site, well, I can't say what I was saying. During Hurricane Florence, our main city and county municipal emergency people, the people that get paid the big bucks to come in and make everything right when stuff like this happens, did a terrible job. Well, they did as best as they could. And they set up at locations that helped Wilmington to recover. But for the most part, you had to be from a certain income level to be able to really get access to those spaces because they weren't set up to some of the lowest income levels. And not,
Mm.
my nonprofit set up at literally the last place in the whole entire city to get electricity after Hurricane Florence. And even though we were the last area, even though our area was the last ones to get electricity, we were one of the first areas that FEMA and all the other folks that started to come around on a national level was like, these folks are doing it right over here. And I got national recognition from there. I got a TED Talk. The nonprofit got a few grants, and I ended up winning a fellowship out of 400 applicants around the nation for a statewide search under a fellowship with Z. Smith Reynolds called All for NC. And out of 400 applicants, it was me and three other people within this cohort. And my proposal was pretty much about bringing black back to Wilmington. There's this history here. There's this community that is disenfranchised and needs a lot of help. We can use the marketing around the story of what happened here to bring people here that will bring in tourism dollars. But then while those tourists are here, if they maybe look like me or you, let's put some last names in front of them and try to maybe see some genealogy work to see if perhaps they may be descendants of the 60% that left, and not only use this history as a driver for economics, but also as a driver to try to reconnect with so many of the folks that ran off and left or might have been killed during that time, or might have had family that might have already been located in another place, right? Let's not just try to repair Wilmington from a financial aspect within disenfranchised communities, but let's try to re-enfranchise those communities literally by bodies and putting bodies back into the city and getting these people back, into households, and now build up that balance of population so that when we're going to vote and when we're going to make decisions, that there's a majority balance of where minds of what people may be thinking and want to happen and stuff like that in the city, so that Wilmington won't continue to go in the direction that it's currently going in. And it seems like every time a decision is made, there's a big group of people that are left off of that decision.
Wow. I just love the vision that you have. Just listening to you talk, I'm like, wow, this
Mm.
is really impactful. And leads me to my next question. So you're expanding beyond Wilmington. So what's your vision for taking this storytelling model across the country? What is
Yeah,
your
I messed up the last part of that. I wanted, well, not messed up. I just didn't finish.
Mhm.
I didn't think about it till we was just saying. So the Z. Smith Reynolds Fellowship paid for me to go on a accelerated course on National African American Tourism. So they paid for me to go to the Legacy Museum and learn from Equal Justice Initiative, go to the Smithsonian's in DC, go to the International Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro, North Carolina, go to the National African American Conference for Tourism at Charleston, South Carolina, and got to experience, all of the great, amazing tour sites that Charleston has to offer and the great things that they've been able to do there and bring that back to Wilmington to make Wilmington a National African American Tourism Site. Well, in the midst of that, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we were supposed to have this huge idea and journey and that I'm still on. So I don't want to talk about it right now because
Sure.
I'm still trying to pursue that journey. But we ended up pivoting to shuttle tours.
Wow.
And I ended up learning that shuttle tours is actually kind of this actually might have been a great redirection,
Yeah.
as you know, as I was studying, as I went on this accelerated course and studied what I talked about earlier in the beginning of the podcast around how a lot of the tours kind of seem like people are just talking at you and it's you know what I mean? There's not there's not a bunch of different multiple levels of ways to engage. That's not the case for all sites, but for the ones
Sure.
that I see that are doing well compared to the ones that aren't, it's the ones that are doing well have figured out other ways to have multiple ways for people to engage compared to other sites. With that being said, the after we started to do the tour and we started now have people in front of us like Travel Noir, Travel and Leisure, PBS, we started to realize and identify that, hey, what we're doing here isn't just a moment in time for Wilmington, but this is a moment in time for Black heritage, culture, and storytellers on a state level. And then also politically right now, it's also a time for us to, make some noise on a national level. And so especially with what's going on nationally and especially with what we talk about locally.
Yeah.
And so the universe just seemed to be talking, right? And when people think about Black heritage from a prideful standpoint, when it comes to North Carolina, they think about Durham. And they think about Durham's Black Wall Street and the Hayti Heritage Community Center. And North Carolina Mutual Insurance Fund, one of the biggest still standing and operating Black-owned businesses in the nation, still currently to this day, was created in 1899, a few months right after 1898. Durham's entrepreneurs didn't want what happened to Wilmington's entrepreneurs to happen to them. So this is one of the many ripple effects that had a national impact. North Carolina Mutual Insurance Fund ended up being one of the wealthiest business on Black Wall Street in Durham. And in 1947, they moved the headquarters to Wilmington. And it was in Wilmington until 1999.
Wow.
And so as I know that story, and as I know storytellers in Durham, and as I start to be reached out to by storytellers in other cities around North Carolina, they were trying to figure out, how did we do what we do? How did people make these things happen? And I realized that we now have an opportunity to not only now bring people to Wilmington and educate them around what happened here in Wilmington and let that be also a driver that helps push Wilmington and the greater Wilmington economically. But if this could help re-enfranchise our community, it can definitely go and help empower communities that are still Black to this day, that have heritage that may not be as deeply uh, racially rooted. Now, hard to go anywhere in this country, this world, and not have any type of racial incidents. I'm just saying in Wilmington, we had 100 extra years compared to a lot of the other cities more inland in North Carolina. Because like for example, I took a tour a few months ago in one of the western parts of North Carolina, and they weren't incorporated until 1856. Well, Wilmington was incorporated in 1739.
Wow.
So we had 100 years. That goes back to why we have a lot of the first blacks of stuff. But I say all that to say we're scaling now across the state because we want to make sure that more North Carolinians know about Wilmington, and if they can't travel to Wilmington, then we're doing these moments to take a traveling exhibit to their town. And right now we're on a festival run where we just left from Durham, where people can come and engage with us for this day as a traveling exhibit and learn about not just our story, but learn about other stories within that city's area too as well, right? Because we don't want to storytelling and history can get a little territorial, and so you don't want to just go to nobody else's city and just be all this was happening in my city, my city, my city. When you have people there that want to bring in that content, make sure you provide space for that space that you're into as well, just to give blessings to their ancestors and to their stories. And so that's what we're doing. We're on a currently right now on an exhibit tour run as we're going to. We just left from Durham and we're going to Charlotte. We were in Durham and we did a tour where we talked about Wilmington's history and the coup d'etat. And it was like a 15-minute video and stuff like that on one of our vehicles that we use in Wilmington. We brought it to Durham. And then by the time that video was over with, when the time the video started, you left from the festival. By the time that video was over with, you were right in front of Durham's Hayti Heritage Community Center. And then you got to go a 15-minute tour through their experience and get you this 30-minute little mini tour that was a combination of both of the big educational components of two big stories of North Carolina. And so it connects the dots of North Carolina because Durham is kind of like a sequel story to Wilmington because Black Wall Street came after the coup. And then we take it to Charlotte, of course, because Charlotte is Charlotte. And and we're and even for me, I'm learning more stories in these areas, and I'm learning more stories that have been overlooked. And I'm identifying people that want to tell these stories. And I feel like I can be in a space to help empower that person by letting them be able to skip the years of work that I had to do to learn some of the things that I had to learn. And the infrastructure that I already have built out, they could benefit from this too as well. And so we're on this statewide tour right now to just go and connect that dot and again, just be a traveling exhibit for North Carolinians to learn about Wilmington Color Tour Festival. But then also we're going to these different cities as well to, by next year, this time, we do want to have some type of in color festival, in color tour that once we leave can be something that people can get access to, book, or experience all year round, just like we do here in Wilmington. And if that isn't the case, like if we can't build out a replica of like an in color experience, then we want to take whatever experience already exists in that area, help add a little bit to the different dynamics of that experience, like I talked to you about before, like something they can watch, feel, and read and touch, and add it to our in color umbrella. And we want to pretty much become a TripAdvisor for Black experiences. We're first starting with North Carolina, but we have been getting some calls and some emails with people that have been watching us from outside the state too as well.
That is fantastic. And just that is just awesome. I'm so happy for you and the organization. And wow, that's a lot. I've learned so much. Again, as someone who recently just relocated to North Carolina, this has been eye-opening. And you know what? When is the festival? You alluded to the festival.
Yeah, I said everything except for the dates, right? The Charlotte Festival, Charlotte and Color Festival is May 2nd. May 2nd, from 11 to 4 p.m. We'll have everything from yoga, All of the libraries in Charlotte will be coming out with different exhibits and archives. We'll even be doing some live on-site oral testimony recording, and we'll even have a genealogist there too as well. And we'll have the bouncy houses and the vendors and the food trucks and the art activities things too as well. But then we'll also have our vehicle there, and we'll be giving this a same type of style of tour where we talk a little bit about Wilmington's history, and then we'll also incorporate Charlotte stories as well. We're in the midst of having those conversations around trying to figure out the route and what story exactly to navigate for that experience.
Wow, I cannot. Okay, I might be able to meet you in person then, which is something
Yeah,
I don't
100%.
always get the opportunity to do. So that's amazing.
Mhm.
I cannot wait. I cannot
And it's
wait.
pay what you can on Eventbrite. I just thought about that.
Pay what you can on Eventbrite. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All of this information is going to be on the Hustle and Faith website and in the show notes, just in case you guys are not able to write all of that down or capture that right away. So I got a question for you. We ask all of our guests this.
Yeah.
If you had to choose one word to represent your goals for this year, what would it be and why?
One word?
One word. What is it with folks this year? This has been the first year where I've had people, can I have two? You would be I think you're like the
I didn't
third
ask for.
person.
I would just making sure I got the question clear. That's all.
Yes, it is
One word.
one word, but if you need two, I'm willing to let you slide with two, but technically it should be one word.
I only have one word in my head. I'm just like, I don't know if that word.
There's no right or wrong to this.
Yeah, I know it's not no right or wrong. The word I have in my head is scaling.
Ooh, okay, I like that.
All my goals this year is about scaling.
Nice.
We're scaling across the state, even with doing the festivals, right? We're like doing a traveling exhibit is a level of scaling.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Trying to or already having conversations around consulting and potentially even franchising other spaces is around scaling, whether that's through another part of the coastal part of Carolina, because we do have we this year we just launched our 2 beach tours, so we've already kind of scaled with adding more experiences than just our one main tour, but then scaling across the state to try to build out some of these other spaces to also just scaling our brand more for people across the nation to still want to continue to come to Wilmington to take this experience. So yeah, I would just say I would scaling right now. That's our main goal is to scale because we figured it out. We figured it out, and now after we took that risk of trying to get it off the ground, it's about seeing how far we can take it.
I love it. I love it. It wasn't a trick question, as you could see.
No. Yeah.
You had the answer all along.
Yeah, I love a good question that just makes me think, and it gave me a moment to think.
Yeah, no, I love that. Love that. So, last but not least, what would you say to someone who feels called to preserve culture, tell stories, or build something meaningful, but doesn't know where to start?
Yeah. All right. I've been answering this question for a long time. Start with where you're at and what you have. You'll be surprised.
I love that.
With the things that are already surrounded around you. Yeah, I was about to go into a sermon, but I don't know. I don't know if everybody watching this will be. Well, no, they will be religious. I mean, they'll at least believe in faith.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'm going to go there then.
Please do.
I am an example of like Hebrews 11:1. Anything that I have that is within my reach right now was something that was just a thought. It was not something that I could have seen or touched within that current time when I was thinking about it. And when you have that relationship with God, that means you have trust and you believe. And when you do have that real line of communication, He's going to put those signs in front of you, right? He told Noah to build that ark. Nobody wanted to believe that it was going to flood. And I felt like he gave me the visions to build out the Wilmington Color tour bus, and I wasn't exactly sure when the flood was coming.
Yeah. I like that analogy. I like it. Okay.
And so for people that are interested in these things, but just maybe don't know, don't feel like they have it all to start.
Yeah. Take a step.
To go ahead and take the first step, because that thought is the first step, Yeah. And if your purpose is aligned within that space, God is going to continue to send reminders and signs over and over and over again. And before you know it, a bunch of the things that you were praying for, that you wish you would have been able to have access to, and all of that stuff, before you know it, it'll be right in front of you. And now you're going to asking God how to make sure that you treat it properly so that it continues to stay and grow.
I love that so much. Cedric, this has been an absolute joy and pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed this interview, and I know the audience has as well. You've shared a lot of gems. If they want to get in contact with you, how can they go about doing so? And then once again, share any upcoming, books, events, and all of that. And it'll be on the Hustle and Faith website too. So,
all right, great. No, thank you. If you ever in Wilmington or ever think about coming to Wilmington, you can find us immediately at www.wilmingtoncolor.com. That's wilmingtoncolor.com. There's nothing in between the Wilmington and the color, just wilmingtoncolor.com. And you can also just find Wilmington Color on any social media platform, literally any social media platform. You can follow me personally at CEO Said North Carolina on Instagram, but you can always find me on LinkedIn. That's where I do a lot of my talking at. And yes, April 18th, we have a Black church crawl with the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor, and we'll be talking about North Carolina's Gullah Geechee heritage and some of the other great things of North Carolina and its heritage, and of course, the connections that the Black church has always had throughout the community, as that was kind of one of the first spaces for community. And so that is taking place April 18th in Navassa/Leland, North Carolina, from 10 to 4 p.m. And then on April 25th, we're doing our first ever saltwater story series, where it's a dinner and storytelling experience where we, or me for this one, will be telling the story of one of the Black beaches. This one was going to be about Rifle Beach and Shell Island. Shell Island was a Black beach resort that existed here in Wilmington during the 1920s until a fatal tragedy happened that we'll talk about during that presentation. But while we're telling this story, Chef Keith Rose was one of the first Black chefs on Top Chef on Bravo TV, and a 2-time James Beard Award nominee, will be preparing a 5-star 3-course dinner meal that goes along with the story that we're telling about the beach. And tickets are $75 per person, and that is available on our website too as well. And tickets are almost sold out for that. But that's happening April 25th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Voice Restaurant, which is the restaurant owned by the Black chef. Oh yeah, and then we have a Charlotte Color Festival on May 2nd at the Omega Psi Phi's Fraternity House on Statesville Avenue, and that will be taking place from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you can get your tickets right now on Eventbrite. They're pay what you can, and yeah, there'll be everything from yoga to art installations to history exhibits to bouncy houses, face painting, and more.
Fantastic. Cedric, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I learned a lot, and I know the audience did as well. So once again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor and pleasure.
For more of our conversation, stick around for Behind the Scenes. That was awesome. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I literally relocated here from Chicago. So born and raised in Chicago. So I've been wanting to interview more, folks from North Carolina, but it's been kind of like pulling teeth. I don't know why, but I'm so glad you answered my thread. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't know about these other people, other folks, but yeah, I'm extremely serious about this and want to make this happen. And I appreciate any platforms that can make it happen. And before you get off, I wish you would have pulled in Chicago before we started, because the first Black architect of
Yeah.
America that I was talking about that's born here in Wilmington,
Yeah.
his name is Robert Taylor.
Wait a minute. Is he the one who made the Robert Taylor homes then?
That's his son in Chicago. The Taylor Homes projects in Wilmington is actually the first ever housing authority projects in the state of North Carolina and one of the first ones in the East Coast. And our Robert Taylor Homes projects is still standing to this day. It was knocked down and rebuilt, but it's still a housing authority project right now. And it's the first housing authority project in the whole entire state of North Carolina. And it's named after y'all's Taylor's Homes father. So
Really?
The Taylor Homes in Chicago is named after Robert Taylor Jr. Robert Taylor Sr. Was a Wilmington native. Robert Taylor Jr., who the project is named after in Chicago, his daughter is Valerie Jarrett.
My mind is blown by what you just said. I did not know that.
Uh-huh. 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 Uh-huh.
Wow, that is wild.
So that's one of the many stories that we tell on our tour.
See,
And
this is what I love.
so as the
I
coup
love.
d'etat was happening, Robert Taylor was at MIT because he built. No, excuse me. Robert Taylor was at Tuskegee Institute because he built Tuskegee Institute for Booker T. Washington.
I can't wait to take your tour, sir. And I'm so mad. I'm so mad when you brought up the Gullah Geechee. Like again, I just moved to North Carolina a couple months ago, and that I haven't been out of Charlotte just yet because I don't have a car, but that's like a whole nother issue. But
You gotta have a car down here in the South.
yeah, I'm
I used to live
noticing
in
that.
DC, so I know like public transportation is actually a luxury up there, but somehow it's kind of frowned upon still in this area.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get over there. But I definitely do. Wilmington is on my list, and I wish the Gullah Geechee, when you mentioned that, that has been one of the things that I wanted to learn a little bit more about. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, I wish I would have known sooner. But this has been a pleasure. I cannot wait. Are you going to be at the Charlotte event?
Yeah, I'll be there.